Hey, this is Ralph, and I thought I'd do a little video talking about 5 different ways tarot reading can work. And we're talking about legitimate tarot reading sessions. There's a lot of people out there that say tarot reading doesn't work. There are a lot of other people out there that will say, yeah, it works, but we don't know how it works. It's just a mystery. And what I've done over the years, listening to other people, kind of watching my own practice and how my wife and I do tarot, come up with 5 different ways that tarot reading works. Two are very common, I mean, no woo woo at all. And then the others are a little more woo woo. So let's get into it. First of all, the two non woo woo ways in which tarot reading can work. The one is what I call common sense tarot reading. And this is where you're sitting down with a client comes to you with a problem, you listen to the problem, and then without even dealing the cards, you're using your own common sense to see what's going on. A lot of times people will be in problems that are pretty easy for other people to figure out, but they won't be able to figure it out for themselves because they're just wrapped up in the middle of that problem. But once they start talking to another person that has more clarity of thought and a little distance from the situation, once they start talking about the problem to that person, then that person can pick up on what's going on, why it's happening, and what that other person can do to solve their problem and get out of that difficult situation. And it's all based in just what I call common sense. And common sense is something that can be honed to a superpower if you have it, because common sense in our day and age is becoming less and less common. But people that have it, it can be seen as a superpower gift that you can use to improve your own life and the lives of others. Now, the second approach, the second way that a tarot reading can work, and this comes from Vincent Petissi. He's a tarot reader that I followed for a long time. He has since passed, but he was reading tarot for 50 years plus, I believe. But he said that tarot reading for him worked through a process that he called creative imagination. And creative imagination can be summed up like this: you sit down with a client, the client tells you their problem, you listen to the problem, then you deal out the cards, and you look at the imagery in the cards, and you see, okay, what does this imagery tell me about the client's situation? And you can look at the images, you can look at the numerological meanings of the cards, their planetary attributions, whatever your thing is. You can even just be looking at pictures on a postcard and use this approach successfully. But you're just listening to the client's problem, and then you look at the imagery, and through your own process of utilizing your creative imagination, you begin to find a solution for the client's problem. And Vincent told this story of how he dealt with a client using creative imagination. A young man came into him for a reading, and the young man was wanting to get a job. He had put his application in to get a job that he really wanted. He was qualified for it. He had the burning desire to get it. Vince did a reading for him and said, "Man, you've got beautiful energy. Yeah, you should have no trouble getting this job. You're qualified. You want it. You're doing everything to get it. I say, don't worry about it. You will get this job." And so the client went down for the interview after the reading, and he was turned down for the job. So he went back to Vincent and said, "I got turned down for that job. Can you tell me why? What's going on? I thought you said I had this pretty much wrapped up." So Vincent said, "Okay, let's do another reading." So he sat down, dealt out the cards, and with the deck he was using, there was a card called the Charioteer. And in his tarot deck, the Charioteer was wearing something that could be described as wristbands. And that got him thinking. He looked at the wristbands on the Charioteer card. He glanced over at his client. His client was also wearing wristbands, carpal tunnel wristbands. And he thought, were you wearing those wristbands when you went in for that last interview? And the guy said, yes, I was. And so Vincent said, do you really need those wristbands? I mean, do you have carpal tunnel that bad that you have to wear them all the time? And the guy said, oh, no, I don't. I just wear them once in a while, you know, going to job interviews and things like that. I just wear them once in a while, but my carpal tunnel is healing up. I can really get by without them pretty well now. And so Vincent said, okay, do this. Call down to that place again. Get another interview scheduled. And then go down for that interview without wearing those wristbands. See what happens. So the guy did, called down, went down for the interview, was hired on the spot, got the job. So an example of how creative imagination can be utilized to see the answers to certain problems that would otherwise elude us. And I mean, yeah, it's just funny the way that can work. So yeah, creative imagination is something that we all have. You just have to kind of use it and channel it more and hone it into a strength. The third way that tarot can work is through intuition and psychic ability, the intuitive psychic method. And this is, we're getting into the woo-woo stuff now. This is where a reader may be a full-blown psychic, like a mind reader, like a person that can see into the future. These people are rare. They are extremely gifted. They do exist. And they are in high demand. So, yeah, if you're looking for an intuitive psychic reader, be prepared to be paying something like $500 an hour for them. I mean, they usually come at top dollar because they are in such demand. But those people that do use the psychic method are rare. What's more common is what I call the intuitive empathic reader. And intuition is another form of psychic ability. It's just less pronounced, but that's where you can pick up on the energy of other people around you. You can pick up, if you're a good empath, you can pick up on their feelings, you can pick up on their emotions, and you can kind of tune into this energy that everybody is putting out into the universe, and then get a good feel on where that person is coming from, what they're going through in their life, and be able to help them through that situation. And my wife is very gifted in this field. What she will do is she will be thinking about a client maybe a few days before that client calls. She has no reason to believe that client is going to call, but I mean, she's just that well connected with that person. And she will be feeling what that person is feeling. She will pretty much know who it is. She will know, okay, this is going on in his or her life. This is what they're going through. And then a few days later, that person will call wanting to get some advice. And my wife will be ready because on an intuitive, subconscious level, well, conscious in her situation, on an intuitive level, she was preparing for that reading a few days before the phone even rang, with no guarantee the phone was going to ring. So she's very gifted in that regard. But yeah, we all have intuition. We all have some psychic ability. It's just that the average person does not hone that psychic energy, that intuitive ability. And people are all over the spectrum. You'll get everybody from, what's commonly known as women's intuition. They'll be feeling like, somebody is thinking about them, and then the next hour the phone rings, it's that person, all the way up to the full-blown psychic who is like at the mind reader level. But we all have these abilities, we just don't all develop them to the same level. One story that I love to share is a story about Orson Welles. He was a famous radio actor and TV actor, movie actor, made a lot of good wine commercials too. He died, when was it? About 1985, 1990, somewhere along that line. But towards the latter end days of his life, he was doing dinner theater. And he was playing a dinner theater in Kansas City, Missouri. I believe it was Tiffany's Attic. This would have been around the 1970s era. But he was playing a role in that stage play of a fortune teller. And in order to get into character, he thought it would be fun to dress up in his fortune teller costume, set up a table in the lobby as the fans were coming in, buying their tickets to the dinner theater, and he had a little sign up saying, readings, free readings. And yeah, he would just get into character by doing free readings for the fans as they were filing in. And he shared this story on video. I'm not exactly sure where it can be found. I saw it on YouTube a few years ago. But the way he shared the story is this: the first few times he tried to do cold readings, as he put it, uh, they really didn't go much of anywhere. He was just kind of guessing. He was just kind of making stuff up, and people loved it because it had great entertainment value. It's like, yeah, Orson Welles read my future, and isn't that fun? But what he noticed is the more that he did it, he was doing this day after day after day for as long as that play ran in Kansas City. And the longer that he did it, the better he became. And finally, the last day that he did this, and he swore that would be the last time he ever fooled around with that kind of stuff. He sat down at his table, all ready to, read for the next person that came up. The next person came up, it was a lady, she sat down, and he just looked at her and he blurted out, "Somebody close to you died, didn't they?" And the lady broke down in tears. Seems that her husband had died a few days previous. She had just gone to the funeral that morning, and her friends and family thought it would be nice to take her to the dinner theater to watch Orson Welles in this stage play to take her mind off of what she had just been through. And here Orson Welles just sits down, does a cold reading that is just spot on. And he blurts it out. "Somebody close to you just died, didn't they?" And it just brought all that emotion back. And he swore after that that would be the last time that he fooled around with this. Because, yeah, the way he told the story, psychic ability does exist. It is something that we all have, but not everybody develops it. And so, yeah, we can develop it. We just have to work at developing it the right way. And then once we do develop it, use it for the right reasons. Not just be using it as the all knowing fortune teller that can tell you everything there is to know about yourself. Actually use that information to be helping another person improve their quality of life. So, yeah, the intuitive psychic approach. It does exist. It is legitimate. Not everybody does it, but it is, one of the more woo-woo ways that tarot reading can work. The fourth way that tarot reading can work is what I call the spiritual conduit method or the shamanic reading method. And this is where the reader channels the higher power of their understanding or the higher power of their client's understanding, either way. And they sit down and they listen to the client, describe what they're going through, describe their situation, and then they just allow themselves to be channeled by that higher power, by the source of the universe. And done properly, this can have a very healing, a very therapeutic effect because the advice that the person is getting, it's not just coming from the reader, it's coming from a higher source, it's coming from a higher power. And I've seen this happen with my wife. She is very gifted, as an empath. She's also very gifted, channeling the higher power of her understanding and then using that to help her clients. I've seen her go through some sessions where she's talking to the client on the phone. Everything starts out, normally, and then they really get into it. My wife is just really getting into it, just talking up a storm and giving advice. The client is interacting and talking back, and it just sounds like they're having a great session. And then the session will be over. My wife will hang up the phone. She'll look at me and she'll say, I don't know where any of that came from. I don't even remember half of what I just said. And I'll just smile and say, you were in the zone. You were channeling source, and the answers that you gave that client, they were coming from source. So yeah, you were a fantastic reader in that regard. But I mean, that is one very beautiful way to do tarot reading. Once you feel that connection with a power greater than yourself and a power that you can trust to help you and your client through their situations. And once you develop a connection with your client that allows you to have that three-way connection between you, the client, the higher power, and be using the cards to just kind of give you some ideas. But once that connection is there, I mean, again, you don't really need the cards. The cards can be used for, I guess, for looks, for fun. But I mean, the main power of the reading is just in that connection that you have with your higher power. And yeah, very powerful way to do tarot. And then the fifth way, is what I call the combination platter. And this is where it starts out, use it at one level, like say maybe the common sense level. Client calls, you're talking, they're going through talking about their life, and their background, and so you're just able to say, okay, I see that you're doing this again. We talked about this in the past. You need to try to cut that stuff out. You're just setting yourself up, yada yada yada. And then maybe it gets into like the creative imagination level, where you're looking at the cards and other things are just popping into your head and you're sharing. Then that leads into the intuitive psychic approach, where yeah, you're following your gut and you're getting these psychic vibes that you're picking up on, and you start giving advice that way. And then that leads into the spiritual connection, the shamanic reading approach, where you're just totally connected to a power greater than yourself, and you channeling that power to help your client. And yeah, I've seen that happen. So I just call that, for lack of a better term, the combination platter method. But yeah, you can use one, two, three, all four of those methods, and at the same time. I've seen it work, and it works beautifully. But do you have to be a full blown psychic to get started reading tarot cards? No, absolutely not. If you love trying to help people, if you love listening to people in a very therapeutic and non judgmental way, and if you're gifted with common sense, that can be enough to get you started as a fairly good reader. There are a lot of people out there that have problems that could be solved if they just had friends that would listen to them in an open, non judgmental way. And sadly, there are a lot of people out there that don't have friends that are willing to listen to them in a open and non judgmental way. And so a lot of people feel that they have to hire somebody to be kind of like a phone friend or a psychic friend that they can talk to and know that they're not going to be judged, that they will be heard, that they will be listened to. And then once they are able to get started in a conversation with a person like that, a lot of times they can work out their own problems. And if the other person is gifted with common sense, they can add in a few other details like, I see you doing this thing. You shouldn't be doing that thing. Try quit doing that thing. Okay. Things will go better for you. But yeah, the common sense approach. And then that can lead to creative imagination where you're just looking at the imagery and other things around you and just picking up on things from that, the intuitive psychic approach, and then finally the spiritual conduit approach. But wherever you are at in your own walk, in your own spiritual journey, you can use any of those levels to get started reading tarot. And as long as your intention is in helping your clients solve their problems and living better lives, that is the main thing to go for. So, hope you found some value in this. This is Ralph signing out. Please remember to like, share, subscribe, and we'll be back later with future updates. Till then, have a great day. Bye bye.